Hey y'all, welcome back to the InNOLEvation Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Rose Walters, and today I get to be here with beloved faculty member, Mrs. Brenda Garner. I'm so happy to have you here, Mrs. Garner.
Thank you so much. That is such a sweet introduction. I appreciate that.
Of course.
I've missed you.
I know, I missed you. We had the best time in your class, and I was so happy to have your mentorship on the side as well. So
thank you for that. Yes.
I want to start this interview by just asking you, what was your inspiration to come into the world of entrepreneurship?
Well, I guess it started back in 93. My husband and I, we heard about an opportunity in Arkansas. His family was his parents were living there at that time. And it just, once that seed was planted, we just started doing some homework and investigating and decided we wanted to go forward with that. I had just finished getting my accounting degree, and I just sat for the CPA exam, so I felt comfortable that I could handle all of our accounting needs.
Wow.
You know, that I would be able to pick out the accounting program needed and handle whatever we needed there, get all the tax IDs and process the payroll and all that stuff. So off we went. And so even though we didn't come up with our own concept and all, we still went through the whole entrepreneurial mindset of taking on the risk and finding a location and just the financial backing, everything that goes along with it. So
that's awesome. What would you say were some of the lessons that you learned from that first venture? I can't imagine how nerve-wracking it might be, but also exciting and just a mix of emotions. Can you share what you learned?
Well, you said that well. It's definitely a mix of emotions. So, and one thing that's very hard to put into words is just the peace we felt when we finally found the one little town that we decided to go into, because we had visited several towns. And if I took you to that little town today, you would look around and just be bewildered. Like, I don't see it at all, but we both just felt it. We knew that's exactly where we were supposed to be.
Wow.
One of the things we were looking for is a location that we could move out into other towns as well, and that provided that. There was so much to think about just because we were going to be relocating our little family. Even though his parents lived there, they were going to be, 4 hours away. So just that piece, that is what I remember. Just, I think when we were moving, there were 2 houses potentially we could buy that were for sale. 2. In this tiny little town of 6,000. Wow. So we found one and we threw some paint up and here we went. So
wow. That's amazing to hear that you were able to just trust yourself and your husband was able to trust himself in the process and you knew, okay, this is where we want to start.
Right. Well, we did our homework, right? There was a lot of research going into it and a lot of vetting and considerations, talking to others who had walked the path. So
awesome. So could you walk me through a little bit of your professional career before you started teaching entrepreneurship?
Okay. Well, yes. So right out of high school, I took a job in an accounting department of a production company when I was taking my first college classes. And I just fell in love with accounting. And I have done several jobs in accounting, whether it was with a car dealership. I did that before I ever finished college. So knowing that I loved accounting, I decided I wanted to get my degree in that. And then along exactly at that time was when we had a chance to do our own venture. We were there for several years, successfully sold it. Then we moved back to Tallahassee. And reluctantly, I went to work for a small law firm. They were in desperate need of an accountant because someone had embezzled money.
Oh, wow.
And so, but with a mutual connection, I just gave in. And so it was going to be minimal time. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I went to work for this gentleman. And it was a fantastic experience. The people were wonderful. And then I had the opportunity to go to work for a larger law firm. And so I did that for 10 years, fell in love with them. It was wonderful working with those guys and gals. But somewhere along the way, I was prompted I just decided to go back to school and get my master's in accounting. I would hear Mr. Garner talk about how much he loved teaching and loved working with the students. I knew that was the next step I had to complete before I would even be, within consideration. And I did that towards the end of my 10 years at the law firm. I actually got the master's in accounting while I was still working there. I did it all online, very challenging. It's about 18 months of my life I don't remember much of because it was just a blur. But I'm very, very happy that I took that path and ended up here with you. So
That's awesome. You had said that you started teaching because you wanted to be an eligible candidate for this master's program, right? Why did you want to stay in teaching? Why do you continue to work with students at the JMC?
you just fall in love with the program, you fall in love with the fellow professors, you fall in love with the students. I am convinced that what I teach is critical information. Most students come into my class and they are not happy to be there. They don't want to learn accounting. I tell them right off the bat that because it's called Accounting Essentials, and the emphasis is on the word essentials. It is essential information to have, and you're only getting the basics. But you have to have that to be able to go forth in any business. Any business is told in numbers. So you have to know what the numbers mean, where to put them. You know, when they show up at a certain account, well, what is that representing? And so I am not comfortable talking in front of people. So I have grown in that department. So that has helped me tremendously.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that your class was definitely the foundation that I needed to come into starting my own business. And I think it also really helped me with the capstone class that I'm in now, and also our financial management class. I can't imagine not having the background in accounting, and also just like experimenting with what my own business would look like. It was so important to be able to, balance my financials and make the budget. And I felt like your class and the mentorship style that you approach it with was just really transformational in my experience.
Well, thank you for that, because that was exactly what it was designed to be, to build a foundation for students to be able to go forth with into the other courses and then into their own ventures one day,
Yeah, absolutely. Has there been anything that has surprised you throughout your teaching career?
Probably the volume of work. And I think it's just the topic, teaching accounting. The only way I think you actually learn accounting is by practicing it. Mm-hmm. So I give a homework assignment for every chapter. And so that we have 15 homework assignments. I go through and grade each one, like make sure to look at this and see solutions and all. So I'm hoping students go back and look to see what my comments say. And then we do 2 projects. One's a Monopoly project at the very beginning of the semester. And then like right now here at the end of the semester, we're in what I call a summary project. I was thinking the other day I should come up with a better name for it. But I developed it after having a conversation with a student who had taken my class, and he came to see me. He had a small business, and he was needing to do his first tax return. And so he said he had gone to his CPA, and the CPA had said, well, I need your income statement, your balance sheet. He said, well, here's my checkbook, and here's my credit card bill where I run everything through. And the guy's like, no, thank you. I need an income statement and a balance sheet. And so he was telling me this. I'm like, bring it. Let's go through this. Let's set you up a chart of accounts and go through all your data, and we can walk through all the journal entries of getting it started and everything, and you will have that information to go back to your CPA. And as we walked through that process, the light bulb just started going off. And he would say, that's what you meant when you said this or that. Yes. And I was like, I just love that transformation that took place. And so because of that, I've sort of developed this other little project, and that's what I'm hoping that students will have a similar experience, bringing it all together after you've been exposed to almost all of it throughout the semester, right, and putting it into practice.
Yeah, I love how adaptable you are to, what the students' needs were, and realizing that there might have been that gap or just that opportunity for a greater and more enriching learning experience. And then you change your curriculum to include that. I think that that's really awesome and such an important part about being a teacher.
Right. Well, course evaluations are out now, right? So that is so important for students to complete. I mean, that is helpful information that we get feedback from our students. One of the most important things somebody had ever recommended to me, talking about trying to adapt, was like, instead of getting to the end of the lecture of all the material and then start working through the sample problems, what about doing problems after we touch on one topic before we go to the next step? I'm like, I love that idea. So I've been doing it ever since. But it had just not occurred to me, but a student thought of it, and I was like, yes, that's fantastic. I try very hard. I always realize that students, they don't want to be CPAs, right? They're not going that track. I try to speak in a business language to help them understand what's going on. And so I love working one-on-one with students and just rewording things until the particular combination of words helps the information click for them. And then once it does, then the learning part's easy. Memorizing accounting is too difficult. There's too much. So I want them to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I thought that made your class so much more engaging for me because a lot of the classes that I've taken at FSU weren't a step-by-step, like, let's learn this. Okay, now let's practice it together. And then having homework on the problem was reinforcing it. Even if it wasn't, the most exciting thing to me, not wanting to be a CPA, I still felt satisfied when I was able to get feedback on it because a lot of my classes too, it's just completion based.
Gotcha.
And I felt like, I knew that I was learning and succeeding because of your feedback. So I'm just really appreciative of that.
Oh, thank you. It's just, like I said, we're building a foundation, right? So you have to have those roots right to go forward. So,
I'd love to ask you, what do you think is important about entrepreneurship education in today's society? Why do you think that students should come into the College of Entrepreneurship?
Because it provides every step needed to walk out and have some foundation of starting your own venture, starting with some of the classes that cover idea generation, right, and product development, then vetting and, checking out that product, going through that process to see, screening it, then coming up with some type of projected financial statements like, okay, this is my idea. Is it financially feasible?
Right.
Marketing and selling it, managing, and then the actual accounting of the product you are now or service you're providing, to your target market and following your numbers. You projected this. Well, how did it actually turn out? How does your budget compared to what actually happened? So yeah. I think it provides all the different steps. It allows for a lot of creativity, which I think is important for an entrepreneur. But then just building that foundational basis.
Yeah, definitely. I love that we get to really explore all of the different topics. And even if we don't have a business idea right from the start, it sparks so much ingenuity and creativity in the ways that the classes are designed. So it's just been such an amazing program to be a part of.
That's great to hear. That is great to hear. So I'm actually teaching an intro to entrepreneurship this semester, and that's been an interesting experience because I've always been either in the accounting or finance. So It's just a much broader picture. And one of the things I've just starting to look at the students have submitted is I had them interview an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I've only read a couple so far. I've already had a chance to grade a couple. But I love it. So many of them have interviewed their parents and particularly their moms and talked about those success stories and the impact it's had on these young students. It was just, I know, it's very inspiring. So I'm enjoying learning about that as they're just getting started in this process themselves.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. I remember doing that assignment. I actually interviewed my mom as well. She has her own real estate brokerage firm, and it was just a whole different type of conversation that I was, guided to engage with my mom. And I feel like that brought our relationship closer. And I also got to just see her in this new light as someone to aspire to become, rather than just, the fantastic woman she is, also this really successful entrepreneur. And I don't think without that class, I would have asked such critical and nuanced questions.
Good. I'm glad I had that. You had that experience. I had a student, of course, he didn't get it turned in on time, so he was emailing me, and then he said, "I hope you have as much fun reading this as I had writing it." And so I'm like, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you think are some of the biggest opportunities for young entrepreneurs today? Where should they put their focus?
Well, I guess the ones that we talk about the most probably are e-commerce, right? Seems like a lot of brick and mortars are going away. E-commerce has become much more attractive to like all ages. Before it was maybe just a younger generation. I was recently in a situation trying to find a particular dress. I needed to attend my son's wedding, and after spending hours and hours and hours shopping in stores without any success, went online. I was able to, yes. So, and then of course technology, that's ever expanding, changing, very exciting. If that's the way your brain is wired, there's so much opportunity there. But one thing I think that's probably overlooked a lot is the service industry. Because especially in some of these towns where there's a lot of disposable income, people like just outsourcing a lot of just minor services that need to maintain your home, maintain your car, whatever it may be. And so a lot of students, I don't think of that just because it doesn't seem as glamorous. Right. But it's an amazing way to make a very good living.
Yeah. So. Awesome. And just to wrap up our interview, I was wondering if you could give the young Mrs. Brenda Garner, in her 20s or something, a piece of advice as a young entrepreneur entering this world, what would it be?
To not make permanent decisions at the age of 20. You've got so much growing to do, so don't limit yourself. I think one of the other things that we had talked about discussing was like, what advice would I give, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things I just recently shared with my intro class was a quote I'd heard, and I loved it. It says, don't look at failure as like an anchor to weigh you down, but as a rudder to guide your path forward.
Wow.
I love that. And another one is in the finance class I teach. I think it's from Mr. T. And it says, if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail.
Wow.
So don't limit yourself, make plans, right? But we are going to make mistakes in life. So just use that, just grow from it, right? There's lessons in all of it. So we're only going to learn so much in these classrooms. The rest is out in that other world. So.
Yeah, which is such a intimidating piece of it. But at the same time, I feel most myself and most confident when I do take that risk. And even if I don't, succeed with flying colors because it's my first time trying something, right, I still learn so much. And I feel like the teaching faculty here has taught me that is a success. Like, that's a win. If you're learning about yourself, about how to be a better entrepreneur, and just more about the industry, then that's a win. And yeah, exactly. How are you going to learn without just trying, which takes so much courage, but I'm just so grateful for how holistic this entrepreneurship education has been in the mental aspect of it all as well.
That is wonderful to hear. So, yeah, I've brought in guest speakers, and so often you hear them talk about how they started and where they ended up and all the pivots along the way that they could have taken as a setback, right? And just given up, but they didn't, and they have gone on to have huge success. So just very encouraging news for you, all of you young entrepreneurs out there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with me today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. I know so many people are going to benefit from listening to this, and I hope that it's inspiring for them as much as it was for me. So thank you so much.
I learned a lot from you just listening, just getting to have this conversation. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in to the InNOLEvation Mindset Podcast. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Thanks. Bye.